All right, guys, my guest tonight is a true titan of the industry, a visionary artist who has left an incredible, indelible mark on the realms of gaming, film, and television with a voice that brought Solid Snake to life in the legendary Metal Gear series. He has captivated audiences around the world, from his stirring portrayal of Captain America in the Spider-Man animated series to his exceptional writing skills showcased in screenplays for X-Men and Watchmen. This man's creative genius knows no bounds. It is my absolute honor to introduce our esteemed, eclectic guest, a true warrior of pop culture. Please, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show, the incredible David Hayter.
Yay. CQ. I kept you waiting, huh?
Stop it. I can't. Yes, thank you. Thank you. So good to have you, David.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I'm honored to be here, and you know, just a shout out to everyone watching and listening. You know, it's good to be here.
Oh man, dude, you have no idea how excited people are to have you come on and to hear your story and to learn all about you. It's been a buzz the last few days as we build up to this moment. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Really, really, really thank you. You were so cool. We met at Fan Expo Philadelphia. You were so cool. You know, took the time and just so giving of yourself. And when I was like, hey, you want to come do my stupid podcast? And you're like, let's do it. And so we're here. Oh, I'm so excited. It's a great tie-in. We're also I'll be at MGS Con next weekend. Very, very excited for that. Unfortunately, you are not able to attend. You're off in the world fighting for freedom and doing the things you do. You know, you're gallivanting around the world and your tours.
I will actually be scuba diving an underwater volcano and chasing sharks around with my GoPro. So that is in the Southern Atlantic.
That is the most Solid Snake answer ever. Like, I'll be busy, you know, scuba diving.
True story. That's
oh my God. By the way, already in the chats, you're hearing like people are like snake, and like, oh my God, Metal Gear.
I can't see the chats.
I know. Unfortunately, I will have to transcribe them for you.
That's okay. I'll just get distracted. But
people are already like, do the voice. Like, no, guys, patience. Let's settle in. Let's make a nice warm welcome for our guests before we start doing the dance monkey thing.
Listen, what am I? Some sort of trained monkey?
There you go.
I am a bit.
I love this. All right, so for real, first question I ask everybody, the same question: what is your military connection?
Well, I'm from Canada. I had two uncles who were fighter pilots, actually, and so we were very proud of our members of the Royal Canadian Air Force. My dad, his brothers were pilots, and so my dad decided to go into the military and ended up in the typing pool. So we're very, very proud. He suffered an injury of carpal tunnel, but he's since recovered and everything's okay. Canadian military history, of which I'm very proud, but also, and I'm very conflicted about this. I have a huge number of people that come to me and tell me they joined the military because of me. And I'm like, please, don't do that because of me, because I'm just sitting in a booth eating muffins and, I'm not actually fighting Metal Gears. And so I want to give a shout out to all of those people that might have been inspired by Metal Gear. I'm happy it was inspiring for you, but please stay safe. I don't want anybody to get hurt on my account. And beyond that, I just hope that that they take care of all of you and treat you right, because you deserve it.
Oh, thank you. Well, we thank your family for their service. I mean, yes, they're not American, but some of our best allies are the Canadians and the Aussies, and I've gotten to serve. I was stationed in Italy, so I've gotten to serve with members of militaries all over the world, and they're all incredible and all bring a different uniqueness to the front lines, I can tell you. And I have some on the side. I tell you some Canadian stories I got from from the battlefields of Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah, I'm sure there's a few.
So now, some people can't see your background as I can privately, but you have a comic book right over your shoulder, which is so, yep, there. Oh man, look at that. You got some cool stuff. I
do. There's all my snake stuff.
Oh, I love it. Love it. I'm gonna get a virtual tour of your house. So that leads me into my next question, which is, outside of the filming, outside of the work, the gaming, voicing, all that, what do you geek out about? What is your geek passion?
Oh well, God, my whole life is geek passion. I wouldn't have this career if it wasn't for that. I grew up loving comic books and movies. Raiders of the Lost Ark was the first movie that movie that changed my life, where I was like, okay, yes, whatever they're doing, that's what I want to do. I geek out about great prosthetic effects, beautiful guitars. I go to these Comic Cons and I get to meet, I got to meet Keith David and geeked out over that. I just got to hang out with Ron Perlman and Danny Trejo, and so I'm as susceptible to nerd love as anybody, and I probably love all the same things you guys love. I love Star Wars. I run the gamut, but that's my life. Yeah. Pop culture.
It's like, celebrities, they're just like us.
Well, and I mean, like, I got a lot of fans and everything, but I would never consider myself a celebrity. People are like, "Oh, you're so cool," and I'm like, "No, I'm just a person hanging out like anybody else." So,
we appreciate your humbleness, but let me tell you, all the people who are here to watch you would say otherwise. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, that's very kind.
Since this is the get to know you portion of our interview, are there any charities or big ticket things that you like really support, or you want to promote, or things you believe in?
I believe in all sorts of things. I really like Heifer International. Is a pretty cool charity, and what you do with wounded warriors is amazing. I just did a podcast with Children's Cancer Society. So basically, anytime people are being treated unfairly or are suffering needlessly, I am in favor of stopping that or improving that situation.
I mean, Solid Snake couldn't have said it better himself. Like, if there's people suffering, I'm going to be there. I'm going to stop it.
He just would have said it weirder.
Yeah. Well, we're gonna get into the how he says things stuff, because I have questions about that as well. Okay. So I read up on you. I learned about you. I know you've been acting since like the age of 9, if the internet's to be believed. So by all means,
that's true. Yeah.
If anything I say is incorrect, please correct me. But you've been acting since the age of 9. You've been doing this so long. Can you remember back before acting, before like this became a thing of like, this is going to be the thing that I do for a living? Was there like, did you want to be a baseball player? Like, was there a plan B? Was there an other alternate that you were interested in?
There was, yeah. Before I was 9 years old, my plan was I was going to go to law school and become a lawyer, and I was going to study karate, and I was going to get rich being a lawyer, and then I was going to become Batman. I had it all planned out, and I did. I started taking karate and was ready to go forward with this plan. And then I realized, and I added up how many more years of school I would have if I wanted to become a lawyer. And I was like, maybe I'll become an actor instead. And if I get lucky enough to be rich, then I'll become Batman. Right. Eventually, I discovered that being Batman is infeasible on a number of levels. And, unless you have billions of dollars, it's difficult to pull off. So that sadly fell by the wayside. I could play Batman, and again, I have my Batman mask up there. I don't know if you can see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
just in case.
Ready.
Gotham
Just,
needs-
I could see you like in the booth, like with the mask on and like,
Yeah.
going
Where's
full.
Rachel?
There you go. Where's the Joker? Right?
Where's the Joker?
We're using
That sort of thing. That was my original plan. So my original plan was lawyer / Batman, and then it became actor, writer, director, producer.
Okay, I like it. I read this and I had to ask because I just think it's so cool. Do you speak fluent Japanese?
No, I went to high school in Japan. I speak conversational Japanese, mostly drunken Japanese. If I go out to a sushi bar or something, have a few Asahis, I can really rip into it. But I can make myself understood, and if I was lost in Tokyo, I could find my way around, speak to people, but it's not great. I mean, it's everything I remember from when I was 15 years old. So I speak sort of broken conversational Japanese, and the same with French.
Yeah, childish Japanese.
Yes, I speak a lot of it, but I speak it like an idiot. So
that's great.
There you go.
I love it. Okay, so by the way, everybody watching live, because we have a large number of folks watching live, don't forget you can ask questions in the chats. If I see one that I feel is appropriate to the conversation, then we'll spring it on David. But for now, let's talk a little bit about your career, because I'm so fascinated. You are multifaceted. You've done so much in a very large swath. When someone says the entertainment industry, like, you've really played in it. You've really kind of run the gamut left to right. So let's dive into a little bit of it. As a writer, as an actor, I think you touched on it a little bit, but I'm curious, what's first sparked your interest in the entertainment industry? What was it about it that called to you?
Well, it was just super fun initially, but I got into it. My mother, we used to move around all the time. It was very much like a military family. People asked me if I was a military brat, but I was a pharmaceutical brat. My dad worked for a big pharmaceutical company, and we got transferred every 6 months to a year of my life, and I lived in all these different cities. So to get to know people quickly, my mother would do community theater shows, and so I would go and see her, and I get to go backstage and see the actors and the makeup and everything. I thought it was really cool. And then when I was 9 years old, we were living in California in El Toro, and she found an ad for a kids production of Pinocchio, and she said, "You should audition for this." And so I said, "Okay." And so I did, and I got a part, and I nailed my first audition, and did this show. And then actually what happened was I was backstage after the premiere, the opening night. I came out, and there was like an opening night party, and I was still in my costume and the makeup and everything. And then this beautiful 10-year-old girl came up to me and asked me for my autograph. So I was signing it, and I was like, this is pretty good, So I have to thank that little girl. She led me on a pretty fulfilling career path. So yeah, I love doing the show. I love signing my first autograph, and I just decided that's what I wanted to do. I started putting up shows in high school, producing shows. Actually, I started in grade 7, I think, but I think I starred in my first show, which is sort of grand. But it sounds grand. It was just like a little stupid, school show. But I started doing that pretty much once a year. And then when I was 15, my parents started letting me audition for movies and TV and stuff. And I booked my first professional audition was for a commercial, and I booked that. I was like, oh my God, this job is easy,
So easy.
So eventually, when I was 20, I moved to LA to give it a try.
No, that's awesome. And so, like we said, you started the acting thing at 9, and more professionally 15. Sorry, I'm reading my own notes as I'm talking, and I'm like, oh, that's not a question, that's just a statement. So I'm fascinated because I read that you got interested in voice acting, and pretty much soon. This is like late 90s or early 90s, you landed the role of Captain America in what is arguably one of the greatest cartoons of all time, and I'll fight anyone who argues, the 94 animated Spider-Man series. So good. How did that come about? Like, how did you make the jump? Because like you said, you were doing performances and you started booking commercials and acting. How did you make that leap into voice acting?
I had done, so I was auditioning as an on-camera actor, and I got this role in the TV show Major Dad. So I guess that counts towards my military connections. I'm just kidding. I played Yakov Smirnov played a visiting Russian general or visiting Russian major, and I was his son, Misha. And so as Misha, I speak like this, I have Russian accent, and, you know, I'm goofy and do all these, I did the Arsenio, whoop, 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 you know, it was the 90s. So I do this thing with this accent, and it was a fun little part. I think you can see the episode on Hulu if you're into, you know, masochism. And then Helen Hunt's father, Gordon Hunt, who was a legendary animation director, was in the audience and just said, "Hey, I want you and Yakov to come play Russians on Captain Planet." So that was it. So I went down and did my first day, and then while I was there, I ran into, like, literally bumped into somebody. I was like, "Oh, I'm sorry," and it was Mark Hamill. And then I backed away and bumped into somebody else, and it was John Rhys Davies from Raiders of the Lost Ark. And then Margot Kidder, it was her first day working on our episode. She was taking over the voice of the computer, and I was like, oh my God, this is the greatest job in the world. And we just sat around. We recorded it all together in one booth, like a radio play, and it was so fun. And then I told my agents, I was like, I want to go out for cartoons and voiceover, and then that's how I ended up getting Spider-Man.
Wow. And you know, I think people maybe who aren't old enough don't remember that even at the height of like that cartoon, like Captain America wasn't really the sexy character back then. He wasn't the what we see today, Captain America, and how
he's more iconic and sort of removed, and yeah.
It's like people were like, yeah, that guy, you know, he'd been around for a while. Like, how'd you find the voice? Like, was it just you just read that way? Like, how'd you find his voice for Captain America? Do you remember?
Yeah, I had been studying theater in Toronto, so I had trained my voice to, you know, be able to hear me at the back of the, you know, be able to sound like I'm talking, but you hear me at the back of the theater. So I thought, you know, that could be my Captain America voice, that he should sound strong and stoic and, you know, ready to take on anything. And so that's where it came from.
Nice. So now let's jump ahead a few years. This is the thing that I'm sure most people get excited for and most people want to talk to you about. 1998, you voiced the now legendary Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid, a game that became a landmark franchise in the gaming industry, right?
Totally, yeah.
What is it like being part of such a groundbreaking project, and how has it impacted your life?
It's impacted my life a surprising amount. What was it like? Well, you know, I got the job, and when we recorded it, they showed me clips from the game. They showed me the downing of the Hind D helicopter, and we did a lot of the scenes to the finished version of the Japanese game. And so I knew it was going to be a big game. I knew that they were really swinging for the fences with it. And I felt like I was very fortunate to land that part, and that this was going to be a big thing. I did not know that 25 years later, I'd be talking about it, that I'd be going to Comic-Cons and doing the Snake voice 400 times every weekend, which I'm happy to do, by the way. But I did feel there was a moment when we were doing it, I had developed the voice, and it wasn't the voice I auditioned with, but to make him sound older and to make him sound like a legend who had already kind of quit and been dragged over a bunch of bad road, you know, I gave it this sort of gravelly edge. And when I was doing it, I felt like, I think people are going to dig this. When I get excited about it, I feel like that energy is going to transfer, and people are going to, I was like me, and I'm pretty badass. I'm, do a bunch of crazy adventurous stuff and whatnot. But this guy was like badass beyond, and I thought, I think people are going to feel that. And so I had an instinct while we were recording the first game that it was really going to affect people. And luckily I was right, but I didn't know how right I was. I mean, then we did 9 games over the next 12 years. And then, like I say, I'm talking about it to this day.
Yeah.
So it was very fortunate, very lucky to have gotten that job.
It's almost as if already, like, the fantasy of becoming Batman, right? Like, this is the very human version of Batman, the more realistic, as far as Metal Gear, I mean, is concerned, but like the more realistic version, like this guy who he's been through it all, he's done it all, he's been beaten, battered, bruised, but always finds a way to win. Like,
keeps coming back.
Yeah, you got to portray someone honestly more believable than Batman. A big dork in a bat costume, in a spandex suit. No, but that's so cool. I just love this. I love this so much. But
I think you're right. I think you're right in that I wanted to be Batman so bad that every part I got, pretty much, like almost every part I've ever gotten, has been like a hero, some sort of superhero, or like Guyver, or working on X-Men or whatever. I was so inspired by comic books and by those characters that love just came through whenever I was auditioning for things like that. And so you're right. I think it led directly to those jobs.
I'm so glad it did.
Me too. So's my family.
Right. The tax attorney, the oh my God, I'm so excited. I'm stumbling over words today. This is great. So Solid Snake has become an iconic character in gaming history. Now, I know you said like 9 games. I really scoured, and I found like 15 different games now, counting, main storyline, subgenre, special cameo appearances like in Bomberman and Smash Brothers. It's like 15,
I didn't even count.
Yeah, like 15 different appearances where your voice was used for the character. So when you say like you're a huge part of the gaming history of that character, obviously, how did, over the course of playing that career, how did your approach maybe change or develop or evolve? Because he's a very complex character. We're talking about the same guy or multiple guys over massive time of history. Like, there's a lot there.
Yeah, well, it evolved in a number of different ways. I mean, I think to a certain extent, as the games got more realistic, I tried to get a little more realistic, where in the initial games, it's so crazy. The world is so crazy, and some of the stuff you're talking about is so crazy. I wanted it to be sort of harder edge than reality, and kind of play up the Japanese style weirdness of it all. And I think as the games became more photoreal, I tried to give it more reality. I don't know if I succeeded in that. And then beyond that, it's just a matter of figuring out where the character is in the particular time period that you're recording. So, for example, for Snake Eater, it's Big Boss, but he's not Big Boss yet. And he like I said, so Solid Snake in Metal Gear Solid, he's tired and he wants to be left alone, and he's already a legend. Well, in Snake Eater, he's just getting started, and he's fired up, and he's like full of belief in the mission, and his desire to go out and kick ass, and isn't really, he learns over the course of that game how dark this is going to get, and what kind of sacrifices he's going to have to make. So by the time we do Peace Walker, that's older Big Boss, and now he's just been through it all, and Big Boss has turned kind of bad, and so it's a harsher, more honed version version of that guy. And then, of course, Old Snake is just falling apart, and his throat is coming to pieces, and it's getting worse as the game goes on. So that's an example of the different snakes. And I don't know, maybe they sound exactly the same to everybody, but that's what I try to put into it.
Not at all. Ben, you just took me on a journey. You just took, like, I could close my eyes. I could see the cut scenes happening right before my eyes. They're so classic. We got some questions in the chats too. I'll get to those. And some people showing support in that they would have liked, I'm gonna put this very PG way, they would have liked to have seen you in Metal Gear Solid 5, and obviously, not happy that the voice went to someone else. So you have a lot of love and support for that. I'll put
Thank you. I tend to agree.
I'm gonna put it in the very PC way, what was in the chat.
All I will say is, no, that is not Solid Snake.
You heard it here first, folks. I'm just curious if there's any memorable experiences or challenges, something when you think back to your careers playing this character, is there anything that jumps out into your mind as just a memorable experience?
It's all pretty memorable. I mean, it's really fun to play these games, and every time we do it, I insist that all the actors come in and we act the scenes together, and so it's always amazing to make the games. I mean, I guess the most challenging thing would have been Old Snake, in that I wanted him to start off here and then end up here, like he's just falling apart. But we recorded the game out of order, so I'd have to ask before every scene, okay, what percentage of the game are we in? So how desiccated, destroyed is his voice? So that, that was a challenge. It was hard on the throat, but beyond that, I mean, it's just, it's such a dream job, and it's a lot of work, but it's so much fun. So I don't really look at much of it as a challenge. Even the Old Snake thing, I mean, that was an acting challenge, but once I heard the game, I was like, okay, I think that worked pretty nicely.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, the story aside, because like the way they weave this tapestry of stories and clones and old and past and future, it's enough to make your head spin. So I'm curious, like, as you were going through it, did you ever sit down and go like, hey, can someone explain to me like where we are, what's happening? Because I played them all through every time they were released, and like I was so dedicated, but even I was like, I don't know what's happening half the time. I'm just shooting things. Nobody explains it to you, and we don't get the scripts in advance. They just, when you hear us reading them, that's the first time we're reading them, really. So, I would occasionally stop and just say, what is this? Who is this person? Who is Rose? Why is Sunny making eggs? Like, none of this makes any sense to me. So they'd give me explanations, but most of the time they'd have to like call Tokyo to figure out what the answer was, and it would take so long, there wasn't any point. So if it was something that I felt I could just fake my way through, I would do that. And if I was just totally stumped, I'd ask, and sometimes I'd get an answer, sometimes I wouldn't. Yeah. And speaking of which, like Metal Gear as a series, starting at 2 and onward, really, like the cutscenes are known to be lengthy, dialogue heavy, intense emotion. Like when you're doing something like that, because I can imagine like the and ah, like these little things, like that's its own challenge, recording that hundreds and thousands of times. But like these, like you're doing set pieces, they're mini movies between gameplay. Like, how do you maintain that energy and that authenticity while recording those?
Well, fortunately, the rules say you can't do a session longer than 4 hours. And after 4 hours, you're pretty exhausted. I mean, it sounds silly to say, but it's true. You're putting a lot of energy into it, and a lot of movement, and a lot of emotion. And so we're geared up to really give it our all for those 4 hours. But I mean, with something like, the Guinness World Record-breaking cutscene from Metal Gear 4, which is 72 minutes long, I mean, we get half an hour in and then take a break, and you can always stop anytime you want, and so it's not like, again, it can be a tiring job, but it's not like lifting crates for a living or anything like that.
Do you think you have the stamina for like the stage version? Like
no. Oh no, not in a million. I mean, when I was 28, sure, but now I would kill myself.
So you're just getting a ton of love in the chats. Phil says his speech at the beginning of Metal Gear Solid 2 as Snake is so memorable. Here's one question. Well, first comment, Snake is one of the best voices in gaming because it's so unique. So there you go. And then from Scott, and I know this just because I watched a ton of footage on you, but does he play the games and does he have a favorite?
I do play the games. I play all the games that I'm in. Yeah, my favorite is Snake Eater. But I love all of them. Like, I love Metal Gear Solid, I love 4, I love Peace Walker. So, it's hard to say, your favorite because they're all so unique and they're all so amazing. But Snake Eater, to me, I love the retro feel of it, and I love how it's the most complete living a movie experience, I think, of any game, really. I mean, with the exception of maybe Grand Theft Auto 5, like that one also made me feel like I was living a movie. But Snake Eater, I just think it's just such a perfect execution of the genre. So that tends to be my answer.
Yeah, I have to say I'm a pretty heavy gamer myself. Immersive storytelling wise, where you can almost forget you're playing a game. It has to. I agree with you 100%. Snake Eater, and then I put that up there with like The Last of Us, where it is just so immersive and it draws you in, and you're like, oh, that's right, I'm holding a controller. Like your character's standing there. You go, oh yeah, the cutscene's over. I gotta play.
I forgot. I thought I was just living this. Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah. So they're truly great. They really are. Curious if, I mean, given the superpower you have to have his voice at any time you want, has there ever been any like a Halloween costume, a dress up, or ever tempted to put on the eye patch and the headband? And
I did it once. I did it once for Halloween with my daughter. Actually, not long after we did. Well, I guess it would have been a little while after Metal Gear 4. But I do that interview, that live action interview at the beginning of the game, and they had this solid eye patch with a light up red light on it, and so I asked them if I could borrow that for Halloween. I actually just stole it. I still have it somewhere. So I glued that to my face, and I got the bandana, and I colored my hair all white, and I went out as Old Snake. But people ask me all the time if I cosplay as Snake, but my other job is I'm a writer producer, and I'm often asking studios to trust me with millions, sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars of their money. So I find it's best not to have a lot of pictures of me dressed up as a fictional game soldier. I wish I could. The kid in me really is jealous of the modern cosplay thing. I would love to do that, but I my other job is in the halls of corporate power, and I have to be careful about what I wear.
You have to wear a different kind of suit, not the ghillie suit or the skin tight.
Suit, not the sneaking suit.
That's right. No cardboard boxes. That would be weird. Just
no boxes. Even though I just feel more comfortable in the box.
There it is. Which, by the way, somebody was saying, because we are doing a giveaway. We are doing a giveaway for anybody watching right now. The MGS Con digital ticket signed print giveaway. Somebody was saying, we got to have David Hayter sign a cardboard box, and that'll be part of the game.
Oh, I would be honored.
Yeah, we'll get like a little small cardboard box, and we'll get you to sign that. And I thought that'd be a fun thing to give away. Speaking of which, though, if Solid Snake himself were going to, I don't know, encourage people to join the giveaway and check out MGS Con, what would he say?
He'd probably say, listen, MGS Con is happening, and there's some crazy giveaways that you want to be a part of. So get out from under your box. Try to remember the basics of CQC and get your ass to MGS Con. Snake out.
Perfect. I didn't want to breathe to ruin it because it was so perfect. Awesome. So let's put Snake aside for a second. Let's put him in his box and close him. He's happy there. Yeah, he's happy there. He's doing his thing. Because like we said so many times, you have such the voice acting is just a part of what you do for the industry and how you've changed the landscape of modern cinema. Like, I want to personally thank you because I do feel growing up, I was a comic book nerd. I love that stuff. Obviously, you can see the background. I have a bunch of collectibles and things. We were happy to get what we got. Totally. So when something like Blade came out and you were like, oh man, that was that. I mean, it's not great, but it's for what we had at the time. Or Spawn. I remember seeing people bash it now. And I'm like, that was the greatest thing my eyes had ever seen. Like, the closest thing a comic book coming to life. You had a hand. You wrote the screenplay for X-Men, the original, the 2000, the thing that I honestly wholeheartedly believe between X-Men and Sam Raimi's Spider-Man, like, paved the way for this holy land that we live in now, this mecca of content. Good and bad. There's, you can argue some of them are.
Yeah. I also owe you all an apology to a certain extent. But it's cool that all that fan stuff came together.
Yeah, so you've written screenplays for various films, including X-Men, X2, Watchmen. I'm curious, how does the process of writing for the screen differ from like writing for movies or video games or other kind of content?
Well, it's a lot more stressful. When you're writing a movie that's going to cost $150 million or $185 million, which a few of mine have, every single element is questioned, every cost, every effect, every story choice. When I first got to the X-Men set, I was like, that was my first big movie I ever worked on. And I was like, oh my God, this is going to be so much fun. And everybody's just going to be having so much fun. Everybody wasn't having that much fun. Everybody was stressed out like nobody's business. I mean, it was really hard. I mean, there were fun things and there were big, crazy set pieces that we shot, amazing stunts. Watching the costumes come together, watching the actors rehearse, all of that stuff is fun and a great experience. But the tension around it of the money that you're spending every single day is and the executives remind you of this on a moment by moment basis. So it's not like when I record a video game, I'm recording Snake or Captain America or something like that. That's just like you'd expect. It's like you come in and you do your job and you kick ass and it's really fun and you're just there to play. Writing is like producing in a way, and it's just an enormous amount of pressure. And for some reason, when you're the screenwriter, you kind of feel like the lowest man on the upper echelon totem pole. Everybody feels like they can. There's a great analogy. Terry Rossio. I was on a panel with Terry Rossio, who's a great screenwriter, and he said, you've never seen a studio exec walk onto a set and start adjusting the camera, start messing with the camera. They would never do that. But every screaming a-hole thinks they can rewrite the script and mess with the script and do things to it and not ruin it. So it's a harder, darker business. But I mean, the reach you have I've had 4 movies open at #1 worldwide. And when that happens, so many people are seeing your work and so many people are being affected by it. It's kind of stunning to experience that and to see reviews come in from all over the world and mention dialogue that you wrote in a panic at 3:00 in the morning one day or whatever. It's a cool experience. But like I say, not easy and really takes a thick skin, and you really have to be able to take a lot of abuse to pull it off.
Yeah, and I want to mention for those at home that, you know, and I agree that maybe screenwriters don't get the due or the respect that they should get, right? Like, because it really, that's the seed that grows into the film, right? Like, that's where it all comes from, before the director, before the actors, before all the other things, the special effects.
Yeah, and it's not to say that those people aren't crucial. Obviously they are. All I'm saying is the writers are equally crucial to the director, to the star, to the
Absolutely,
the effects or whatever, and we should all respect each other as such. But I don't know, there's a weird hierarchy in Hollywood.
So I do want to mention too that you won a Saturn Award for best writing for X-Men. I mean, there it is. You know, as well as being nominated for X2, for Watchmen. I mean, that's an incredible accomplishment, and at a time where superhero movies weren't even really a thing, let alone respected in cinema, because I feel like a long time it's been less than, you know, in the hierarchy of cinema.
Oh yeah, well, and listen, the studio, you know, we worked very closely with the president and vice president of Fox, and they thought it was going to be a disaster. I mean, they were like, we don't even know why they kept our budget down to $75 million, which sounds like a lot, but you know, is pretty tight for a movie of that size. No, they thought it was, I'm amazed they went through with it. You know, they were just panicked about every decision, every moment. People going to get this? Are they going to understand why there's 11 superpowered people? And I'm like, yeah, there's 50 imprints of this comic printed every month. Like, people get it, you know. But it was their money, so you know, it's hard to argue with their fears. But it wasn't until the movie became a hit that as you say, all of Hollywood was like, oh, well, there's all kinds of comic books. We could, you know, there's all sorts of material we can mine here, and they figured it out, or we figured it out for them.
Right. I was gonna say you figured it out for them.
Because the people that worked on the X-Men script were me, Bryan Singer, Tom DeSanto, and a young assistant named Kevin Feige, and we were the ones who knew X-Men and
the source material.
Yeah, and we figured out how to do it in a way that respected the source material and was still fun, but still felt like, you know, had the emotional heft of a great X-Men comic. Yeah. And, you know, we took it seriously, and that sort of changed the industry.
Yeah, grounded in a way that they're not all running around in spandex fighting, you know, silly slap Technicolor, you know, monsters and things, but kept it very personal and very real, very gritty, very grounded. I'm curious now, because I'm sure you've seen in the news and the media, Deadpool 3 coming out soon. Images of Wolverine in the full yellow and blue. I mean,
full yellow and blue.
How do you feel? Because I want to know inside your head, like, you see this and like Hugh Jackman is Wolverine because of the movie that you helped bring to life. And now here we are 20 plus years later, you know, full circle. And now he's like comic book Wolverine. I mean, how do you feel seeing all this? And that there's, you know, the rumors that like a lot of the old casts are going to be involved, and like a lot of the old Fox elements are going to be involved. Like, how does that feel for you?
Well, that's pretty awesome. I mean, just as a fan, you know, I first of all, I'm seeing a lot of stuff on the internet saying, you know, the Fox executives wouldn't let him wear the yellow suit. That's not true. Bryan Singer, the director, wouldn't allow Bryan didn't want to make a comic book movie. He just wanted to make a good movie. And he goes, I don't understand why he wears yellow and blue, and, you know, Storm's wearing a bikini, and, you know, he goes, why is Wolverine, who's the toughest one, the only one wearing a mask? Like, none of this makes any sense to me. And so, you know, me and the other guys who knew X-Men were like, because it's badass. And he's like, that's not real. That's not good enough. He goes, unless you can find uniforms that are practical, that makes sense for them to wear. They're just going to be in street clothes. So that's where, so Bob Ringwood, who designed Michael Keaton's Batman outfit, created those black leather uniforms for the first movie. So it's just the director trying to not be humiliated by a bad yellow and blue costume, which it might have been, you know, which we didn't have that much experience making superhero costumes at the time. So that's what we did. And then, you know, and the internet complained about it even then. And then the movie came out and all the books switched to the black outfits because they were like, oh my God, that totally makes sense. But now we're 20 years later, superhero movie technology is 1,000 times beyond where it was then. And the suit they made for him is clearly so badass. Like it references the yellow and blue costume and looks amazing. But at the same time, it's practical. It's like leather armor. It's got the slots for the claws. And yeah, it's really badass. And I'm so glad to see, like, I understood the point of not putting him in the yellow and blue in the first movie, but I'm so glad that we've gotten to a point now where we can do it and people just accept it. And
people are excited about it.
It's pretty damn cool.
Rob in the comments called back to that line, what do you want, yellow spandex? You know, right. from the first movie. How great is that? But,
right.
You know.
We actually had, somebody came in, I won't say who, but there was a writer who came in to try to rewrite me while we were doing the movie. The studio didn't have any faith in me, and they kept trying to bring in people to rewrite me. And this guy, the final scene was Wolverine. He's accepted. He's going to be living at the mansion, and Rogue comes into his room, and he's sewing his yellow costume. And you know, we were like, we're not going to end this with Wolverine knitting. You know, like that's not going to happen.
He's crocheting a uniform.
You know, knit one, purl two, and you know, and so the yellow almost showed up in the first movie, but it was not. We didn't have faith that would not destroy all of our careers.
Fair enough. It's switching gears. Another screenplay, obviously Watchmen. Switching gears. Watchmen. I mean, you wrote a 138-page screenplay adaptation to the graphic novel Watchmen, which has been hailed as one of the most accurate translations of comics to films ever written, that Alan Moore himself said David Hayter's screenplay was as close as I could imagine anyone getting to a film version of Watchmen. I mean, when you...
Wait, let me finish that sentence, though. He did say that, and then he said, comma, that said, I shan't be seeing the movie. So,
I mean, I was gonna leave that off.
No, but it's almost cooler that way, because it's like he didn't care they were making a movie. He didn't want them to make a movie, but he was so kind to me as a writer that he gave me that shout out in Empire magazine, which just made me want to cry. I mean, that was so, he didn't have to do that, and it just shows what an amazing, you know, decent guy he is, and how much he respects other writers. And so so thank you, Alan.
No, I mean, that's, I can only imagine. You know, from the source itself, you know, speaking up on your behalf. And I mean, he was a notoriously grumpy guy, so I was like, I'll leave the back part of it off. But still, it's such a huge compliment. What inspired you to adapt, you know, these popular comic book storylines for the big screen, and how do you approach translating that from one medium to the other?
Well, in 1997, I was producing a movie called Burn, which a little tiny movie that I'm in that you can see on YouTube. And I was, somebody gave me a copy of Watchmen. I had read it when it came out when I was 15. I loved it. Somebody gave me a copy while I was shooting Burn, so I would just read it in my dressing room. And I came to the line, the psychiatrist is describing what Rorschach's going through in prison, and he tells the story about how the guy tries to shiv him in the food line, and Rorschach takes the fry oil and throws it in his face and burns the guy to death. And then he gets tackled by the guards, and he says to everybody, all the other prisoners, none of you understand. I'm not locked up in here with you. You're locked up in here with me. And I was like, that's the greatest line I've ever heard, and it has to be in a movie. Like, I have to put that in a movie somewhere. But I was producing a $250,000 movie, and I was like, there's no way I will ever be able to work on something as big as Watchmen. Well, 3 years later, I end up by accident writing the script for X-Men. It happens to become a big hit. Then my agent said, what do you want to do next? And I said, I want to do the greatest comic book movie of all time, which is Watchmen. Or I want to adapt the greatest comic book of all time. And so that's how it started. I mean, it was that line. I was like, I have to do this. And it just got into my head. And then suddenly I found myself in a position to be able to possibly make it happen. So I pitched that to my agents, and it took 9 years, 4 different studios, 4 different directors to finally get it made, and to see that line come out on screen. So it was quite a journey.
Worth it. I mean,
it was worth it.
A lot worse for you than it was for me, but I would tell you, worth it.
It was definitely worse for me than it was for you. But every studio we went to, they wanted me to do rewrites so they would pay me again, and so it was pretty lucrative.
Yeah, not too bad. Someone reminded me here, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention, do you have any updates? Do you know anything about the MGS movie? Is that something they're asking? Multiple people have asked.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening with it. I don't know that there's any significant movement at the moment. I mean, I know they attached Oscar Isaac, and I thought that might move things forward. You know, the issue is that Metal Gear is big, massively expensive, and weird. And if it's not all those things, then it's not Metal Gear. So I think, so I understand why it's difficult to get a green light on that. I mean, it'll probably cost $250 million at least, and you got to have all the Metal Gear weirdness. I mean, it's a hugely difficult thing to pull off. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I have the information you guys have, but I do know the industry, and it doesn't sound like it's moving too quickly. But I could, who knows? They could make an announcement tomorrow and say it's in production.
And it's one of those things that it just could take time, and sometimes taking time is for the better, right? I mean,
indeed.
If Watchmen had came out 20 years ago, it would be a very different movie, or
well, it's funny. I got to meet Sam Raimi at one of these shows. I mean, I'd met him before, but I reminded him who I was, and he was so kind to me. And he's like, "Oh my God, you've written some great movies." And we talked about Watchmen, and he said, because I feel like Watchmen coming out in 2009 was too early. Like if it came out now with all the comic book movies that we've seen and all the weird things, we've seen Logan, we've seen Deadpool, we've seen all these things. He's like, I think now the audience would be completely ready for it. And at the time, it sort of stunned them. It was it was a little overwhelming and strange, but and I thought that was a good point as well.
But it had to be of its time. I really want to respect your time. It's been almost an exact hour. There's so much more I want to ask you about, because your career is just so huge, and you work on Scorpion King and all these different things. Let me ask you 1 or 2 more questions, and then we'll let you go. I know in my reading that at one point, and this is just around the time of X-Men, just before or just after, that you were actually working on a draft for a Black Widow movie, and that you were so passionate about the character in that world that your daughter is named Natasha after Agent Romanoff. I don't know how true that is, but again, based on
absolutely true. Well, yeah, I mean, the truth is, I was attached to write and direct the Black Widow movie with Lionsgate in 2004, and then my daughter was born in 2004, and I had a meeting with Marvel the next day with Kevin Feige and Avi Arad, and I showed them pictures of my little girl, and Avi says, it's like, "Oh, David, she's so beautiful. Like, what is her name?" And I said, she doesn't have one yet. And he goes, "What about Natasha? It's a beautiful name." Because we were in the middle of story conversations about Natasha Romanoff. I was like, "Well, sure, if it gets the movie made, I'll name her Natasha." And so And I thought it was a nice name, and so I named her Natasha, and they canceled the movie anyway.
I'm curious if that comes to life, if it comes to fruition, what was the story? What was that Black Widow movie like?
The story was it started out in the Soviet Union, and she was training in the Red Room. She's like a little girl. We see her from the time she's like 8 to 12 or whatever. She's training. They're turning her into a killing machine, and I also had a thing where were like replacing her tendons with like insect replica tendons, so she's super fast, like a spider and all that stuff. And then and it was basically a James Bond movie with a super spy girl. And so the Soviet Union fell apart. She grows up. There's all these loose nukes in all the former Soviet republics, and something goes wrong, and she's forced to go back, and eventually it leads her back to the Red Room. And so and she confronts the demons of her past, and so on and so forth. But my favorite part about it was, along the way, she's got people like Indiana Jones, like people she meets that get her a plane, or some informant or whatever. And there's this other spy who's on a job that you think is separate but is really tied in, and his name was Anton, and he was a slick British spy, and I was dying to cast David Bowie to play that part. And that was going to be my dream, was to direct David Bowie in a movie, but sadly the movie fell apart and didn't happen.
If just theoretically, we're just hypothesizing, if it were to come true, who did you see in your mind's eye? 2004 Black Widow.
I was Jessica Biel was our choice at the time.
I could see that.
So she was the prime. I mean, there were other people we talked about, but
sure.
But she sort of embodied it for me in 2004, and I thought she would be great.
Outstanding. Oh God, Scarlett Johansson's done a fine job with the character.
Scarlett Johansson's amazing. I think she was 6 at the time, so I don't know. That would have worked out.
I'm just saying, she's done a great job with the character. But anyway, we've held you up long enough. Again, so much more. Maybe we have to get you for a part 2 at some point, because I want to talk about the Scorpion King. You voice King Shark in the Flash series in a number of episodes.
That's right. Where's the Flash?
I mean, come on! Like you've done so much. There's so much amazing stuff we can talk about. But the last thing I'll leave is we need to know your social media, where people can find you, and maybe anything coming up that you want to promote. I know Warrior Nun is huge. I mean, let us have it. Let us have it all.
Yeah, so, a few of the things that I'm doing, I just had a game called Synapse for the PSVR 2 come out, which is pretty kick-ass. That's me and Jennifer Hale, and you get to infiltrate my brain and fight the military demons of my mind. So that one's pretty cool. I wrote and was an executive producer on the show Warrior Nun, which was canceled, but now the rumor is we're getting resurrected, which is appropriate for Warrior Nun. So keep an eye out for that, and if you haven't seen the show, check out the first 2 seasons on Netflix, because very proud of that show. The actors, the stunt work, the writers, everybody put so much into it. And Simon Barry, our showrunner, we put a lot of love into that show, and the action sequences are astounding, particularly for the size of show that we have. So that'd be good. I don't think I can tell you about that one yet. Just recorded another video game, but that one's probably still secret. I'm going to be starring in a short film called Chopper, which there's little things about that on the internet. You can find me, sadly, still at Twitter, at David B. Hayter, and on Instagram at the-David-Hayter. And those are my 2 for the moment. So come and say hello, or yell snake at me, or whatever you'll do. And beyond that, I'm just making my way. I've got a TV show that I sold and a movie that I've sold that I really am very excited about. So can't talk about them yet, but they will be on the way, and I think you're gonna dig them.
Oh, it's so awesome, guys. We just talked to Snake, to the legend, man, David Hayter.
Wow. I so appreciate you having me, and I'm afraid the reality is no match for the legend, but I really Thank you so much for doing what you do. Thank you to all our members of the military out there. As I say, stay safe, take care of yourselves, and I hope to meet you all one day. And thank you again for having me.
Yeah, check out your local conventions. Look out for David. You had so many people looking. Like, I watched as I was passing by, and it's the engagement with the fans. And again, other questions I wanted to ask, just about convention experiences and all that. But we'll save it.
Well,
for
let's do it again. Let's set up.
Absolutely.
Save the questions, and then I'm like I say, I'm going to go to Portugal. I'm going to dive in the volcano and chase the sharks, and then when I get back, we'll do this again. We'll do another hour. I'd love to.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. Ladies and gentlemen, this has been the incredible David Hayter. I'm going to toss it to a break. I'm going to say goodbye to my guest, blow him virtual kisses and all that stuff. But we'll be right back after this with more Pop Culture Warrior. See you after the break.